Hello, everyone. Welcome to TCR Express. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey, and with me today, as always, I have
Staff writer at the Journal of Commerce, Russell Hixson. Hello.
Russell. I've been off for a few days, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
completely ignorant as to what's happening. So, what is happening?
Thank goodness for TCR Express, because I'm going to let you know what's going on. First of all, let's talk about the Vancouver Art Gallery. They are in the midst of planning a major project that's going to transform the art gallery. It's been in the works for many years, but it's just been a long slog to get it paid for. I believe the budget currently is around $400 million, but they just got a humongous shot in the arm from Michael Audane, um, who's a well-known supporter of the arts and a philanthropist. And as it ties into our community, he is in charge of Polygon Homes, which is one of the largest home builders in all of BC. And he donated $100 million to the project. So
That is a lot of money. A lot of money.
yeah, and they're still looking for some more funding, but that is a massive shot in the arm. And I believe they said that they're expecting potentially, fingers crossed, construction could start as early as next year.
Oh, wow. And it's, I just remember originally, and I think still, the project is very heavily reliant on wood. So that'll be interesting too. Like all the mass timber stuff we've done is kind of getting it put into this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they released the design drawings for it a few years ago, just to get people excited about it. And yeah, it should be pretty interesting. It's a very traditional looking building right now. It almost looks like something you'd see in like Ghostbusters,
Yeah, it does,
like a very traditional art gallery, like New York City Public Library kind of building with like the pillars and the masonry. But it looks like they're going for something a little bit different.
Yeah, and it's
So
going to be
it should
about
be
three
cool.
blocks from my place, so it'll be easy to go visit.
Yes, you can be a patron of the arts, Warren.
I can finally. I'll
Finally.
stop being a Philistine.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
what else is happening?
Yeah, I just got off the phone with Bill Ferreira, the executive director of BuildForce Canada, and they have just finished developing a course that's called Introduction to Understanding Systemic Racism. It's a e-learning online course, and it's meant to kind of bring awareness and get people a little bit more familiar with what their unconscious biases may be, especially people who are in positions to hire and promote people. And a big chunk of the course is where the person who's taking the course actually can answer a series of questions and can find out if they may have unconscious bias that could be impacting, some of their decisions. So it should be
That's interesting.
interesting and helpful for people who are in those positions. And yeah, we're gonna have a story up on it pretty soon.
Okay, fantastic. And in the East, Daily Commercial News staff writer Angela Gismondi attended a affordable housing summit hosted virtually by Scotiabank on Friday, where industry experts and key stakeholders discussed ideas and opportunities towards, quote, advancing solutions through policy initiatives, market opportunities, and innovation. In a session billed leveraging examples of successful partnership models, attendees heard from representatives from Concert Properties, Dream, the City of Calgary, and the Toronto Community Housing Corporation discussing different affordable housing projects being built across the country. And Daily Commercial News staff writer Don Walright said Ariel Friedman of Choice Properties had a blunt message for his fellow Toronto developers attending the recent ULI Toronto ESG Symposium. There is no longer any grace period to plan sustainable projects to meet carbon reduction goals in some distant future. Rather, in quotes, we need to take action today, end quote. It takes 8 years to plan, finance, obtain permits, and build a major structure, Feldman said. And 2022 is almost upon us. So to reach a 50% reduction in emissions by 2030, the projects developers are working on right now need to be sustainable. Quote, the International Energy Agency has put out a net zero roadmap, unquote, said Feldman. Quote, and what they're saying is that in developed countries, we need to be building net zero ready buildings by 2025. That's 3 years. I don't think we realize the urgency of that mission. We're 10 years behind where we need to be, end quote. And up next, we have an interview with Andrew Koolsbergen from the Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnerships, who are holding their conference on November 16th to 18th. We'll be there covering it, and here's a preview of what you can expect. I'm here with...
Hi, it's Andrew Koolsbergen here. I'm Vice President of Strategy and Stakeholder Engagement with the Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnerships.
And we're here talking about the upcoming conference, November 16th to 18th. Maybe we should start with the fact that last year you did the virtual conference, and I'm not buttering you up here. All of my colleagues agree that was probably the best put together virtual conference we've done, and we've done a lot over the last year. So given that, what do you guys plan to do that's different, or what do you think really worked last time that you're going to carry over this time?
Well, that's first of all great to hear that it was such a great experience last year, and I can promise you that it's going to be just as good, if not a better experience this year. I think what we really learned last year is that content really drives a lot of what's going on here, and the content that we've put together has just been exemplary compared to what we've seen coming out of COVID, what we've seen in the surge in infrastructure. So the content is really going to drive the agenda, and I think you're going to see some great content.
Okay, and what specifically will be some of the, because I know there's themes every year. So what's the overriding theme this year, and what specific content could you highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. So the content theme that we're really after this year is innovation and adaptability. We've seen such an enormous amount of change in the sector that a lot of our panels are focusing on that. So, we have panels such as municipal wastewater that focuses on just, what we've seen managing those sort of assets during COVID. We've got panels on climate change. We've got panels on broadband, hospitals, and transit. And the concept that we're really going with is, the core focus and beauty of P3s is their innovation and their ability to excel at innovation. And so we're just addressing a whole host of different topics across the sector through that lens.
Mm-hmm. And one of the advantages, and I've been to the in-person event a few times, is that you're down the block from Queen's Park, and you're not that far from Ottawa, and you can basically draw on a lot of different decision makers, and you get people from all over the world. Obviously, you can't do that in the same way, but you can also draw from people with an internet connection. So how have you taken advantage of that this time in terms of guests that you're going to have speaking and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a whole new world, and it's one of the perks of that virtual world. Absolutely. So we've gotten a much more cross Canada perspective, I would say, coming out of this. We usually have a lot of people from across Canada attending the conference. Now we've managed to get a lot of really interesting experts that we can get onto our panels from Canada and the US. And it's one of these things where I really like to push this onto our panels, is that we get into the weeds. These panels are not meant to be at 35,000 feet conversations. They're opportunities for the people who are actually really working in this sector, who, sometimes wouldn't be able to make it out to Toronto, who are now able to go and talk about what they're doing. And it's just really, really fascinating. And the same goes for day 3 international component as well, is that we have just a fantastic display of countries from across the world who are going to showcase, their countries and the projects that are coming up. That's a great advantage that we've really taken advantage of.
I know you also had breakout rooms that are sort of industry specific or region specific. So like Newfoundland would go off and say, here's the projects we have coming up, and here's the different ways these things are coming together. Is there a component of that in the virtual sense as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have market soundings, which will
exactly,
be,
yes.
Yeah, and so we've got 4 of those in the program this year. From across the country, we have a hospital, we have a river project from LA, we have some bike network infrastructure from Chile. So we've got some really good projects there. So be sure to check those out in the program, because there's going to be some really great opportunities for the sector to go and check out these projects and provide feedback to the procuring agencies that are going to be speaking about them.
Now, I know one of the big opportunities of the P3 conference is networking. Myself and my colleague ended up just hanging out with the Mexican delegation at one point, and they were really interesting to talk to, because when else do we get to do that? So how does the virtual conference reflect that opportunity?
So I'll say this, it's one of the changes that we've looked at this year, is the fact that networking is just impossible on a virtual program. And we put in a lot of effort last year to try and stimulate networking, and we just found that people weren't picking up on it. Well, we had realized that people preferred to go into the delegate directory that's available on the conference and just reach out to people directly and have those sort of meetings and one-on-one. And you can do that through the conference platform. And so we've actually dialed back the efforts into trying to create chat rooms and whatnot, just because we wanted to put our effort into the area that people were focused on. And so there might be a little less visible networking available, but I can assure you that, there's a lot of people that are going through that delegate directory and, sending messages and, reaching out and connecting with people and setting up face-to-face meetings virtually. And so we've really refined that, and we're really excited to see that move forward. But it is a change that people will notice from last year, is that we'll have less open networking rooms and whatnot, just because they, they get used.
But one thing you do have is you have a sort of brain break and wellness break activities. So maybe you could explain those.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of heavy content, a lot of intricate content that we see. So we've got a couple of fun breaks that we've got. You'll see some, yoga lessons. We'll see some Indigenous dancing, magician one, which was very popular from last year. We've also got some companies that have come in who have put together just short videos, 8 minutes or so, that just showcase what their companies do and just give an idea of what they're up to. So some really interesting options there. And I think it's going to really break up the content just so that people can, sit down on the platform and enjoy the full day. But we also have an excellent evening entertainment set up for the conference, and we're really excited for that. It's cocktails and charcuterie boards, and the whole theme is, now that COVID's coming to an end, we all have to learn how to entertain people again. This is basically a class on, how to make a charcuterie board, like the professionals do, and some classic cocktails and some signature ones as well.
One of the other things I've always found interesting about, and this is not unique to the P3 conference, but you seem to have a lot of it, is you have a lot of access to government people. So is that going to be a factor this year as well, with having government representatives from all the different levels?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's always been a core focus of the council. We facilitate those conversations between the public and the private sector. And again, you'll see on the day 3 program, we've actually got the agency heads panel that's being sponsored by Gowling. And, it's these agencies are coming in and they are spending their time looking at the conference. They're attending sessions. We have substantial participation from our government agencies and government entities from across the country and the US and the world, for that matter. So you'll definitely see a lot of those people there milling about on the platform, and, absolutely a prime opportunity to reach out to them and connect and talk.
And I guess my final question would be, next year, hopefully we're out of COVID, but do you think you would keep virtual, and maybe this is too early to ask, but would you keep virtual components along with an in-person conference if need be, or do you think it would go straight back to in person?
So it is, a bit early to say. I'll say this: we are certainly going back to in-person next year. Will there be some virtual components of it is still TBD. We know that people do really enjoy the in-person networking aspect of it, and while we're not able to deliver that on a virtual platform, we certainly want to get back to delivering that for the in-person. We are in full planning already for that conference, so I can assure everybody that we've got some really great concepts and ideas, and it's going to be a fantastic return to in-person. But that's we're looking forward to that.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to hear more of the Construction Writer Podcast or TCR Express, you can hear us on Apple Music, Amazon Music, or Spotify, or on the Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks.